Hey everyone, in the following podcast you'll hear the edited audio of Sienna's live Instagram interview with educator and historian Fiona Compton. Fiona is the creator behind Instagram platform Know Your Caribbean and aims to tell marginalised histories of underrepresented groups. Want to learn more about how you can promote inclusive history? Fiona gets us caught up. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited for today. How are you? You're looking great.
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Excuse the makeup. I just came from a shoot, so I have on more makeup than normal.
How was the shoot?
It was great. It was with Notting Hill and Samsung, and it was just because they were doing this campaign. And it was going to be displayed it's being displayed now in Piccadilly Circus on the big screen. And it was. We had to do some pictures first. I had to be up from 3 o'clock this morning to get ready. But all is well in this land. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Are you all right to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay. So for someone who hasn't seen your work or experienced what you do, you want to just introduce yourself and what you do in art and education?
Absolutely. So my name is Fiona Compton. I am an artist and historian, more specifically a Caribbean historian. I run a platform called Know Your Caribbean, and it's specifically about Caribbean history and culture. So that's its principal focus. So within that, I'm an official ambassador for Notting Hill Carnival. I also facilitate workshops for adults and kids. Like I just did a session with another company about teaching them the history of Carnival. So that's all of what I do.
Wonderful. So to someone who's not sure what character history means, do you want to just expand on what that looks like for your work?
For Caribbean history, I think because when we speak about Black history, there's very little focus on Caribbean history in itself. So when I talk about Caribbean history, talk about history of not just Jamaica, but history of Trinidad, history of Haiti, history of Cuba. I think also when we speak about Caribbean history, we don't speak about the Dutch Caribbean, the French Caribbean, the Spanish Caribbean, and also in terms of these representations, it's we don't speak about the Chinese Cubans, we don't speak about the Asian Guyanese. We don't speak about, the German Haitians. There's we're so diverse and dynamic. And I feel like all of these things are really, really important. And then within Caribbean history too, is the narrative of slavery is speaking about, it's kind of very one-dimensional in terms of they just talk about we have been whipped and beaten for 400 years, and and then there was emancipation, hooray, and then that was it. But the fact is that there were rebellions all the time, there was resistance all the time, and a lot of the things that we enjoy within Black culture, Caribbean culture, is a result from resistance against oppression from slavery. So all of these things, that was what we talk about within Know Your Caribbean in terms of teaching and stuff like that, and shifting that narrative of we came from slavery and then that was it. And then we had independence, but there's so much more to us.
Definitely. And I'd love to expand on that about shifting the narrative and how you're doing that within Instagram and within online projects. So how does obviously you're speaking to me through your Instagram account and through that platform, and how does that kind of serve the goals of shifting the narrative, creating narrative marginalized voices within your work as an educator and historian?
Absolutely. I think within Know Your Caribbean, it's about understanding. It's not that people don't care about history. I think it's just how history is presented. So for example, Know Your Caribbean, if you head to the page, you'll find a piece of dance hall music juxtaposed alongside a piece of writing from the 17th century. It's I think not everyone likes to learn through books. Not everyone likes to learn through the traditional academia, and that doesn't mean that we don't care. It's just that not everyone responds to that in the same way. And also looking at how things are in kind of modern society now. We don't have time. People don't have time to read. What's someone post on Instagram? like if it's too long, people start to zone out afterwards. So you have to give people things in short, palatable bursts. So I think, just kind of giving history a modern spin, an accessible spin, a palatable spin, in like digestible bursts has been like most effective. And also kind of thinking about your use of language. Like, I will have something where it would be so and so is like a bad girl, or this was gangster, or this kind of thing. I'm not going to, you wouldn't really find me saying, in the 1500s, the Spanish Armada commenced its journey. Like, no, listen, like I'm not that way. So I think that's how people can relate to what it is that I'm trying to do. So
definitely, I think that's super empowering as well for people who don't, as you say, learn in a certain way from mainstream education, and then you go into those environments and present them with a different narrative. And that's kind of what I wanted to speak about next, in terms of what your creative process is like when you're going in and delivering workshops, for example.
Okay.
Changing the narrative. Like, what does that look like for you as an artist and historian, in terms of your creative process and providing those resources that are very unconventional?
Well, when I do workshops, I don't really change the workshops for who I'm like. So I would have some prepared slideshows and stuff, which will have. I like to, because I'm an artist. I respond well to visuals, and I feel like people will, or you'll be drawn into if I'm showing you videos and music and pictures and this stuff like that. So even if I'm doing, because I've done workshops for like very corporate stuff, like for banks, and things like that, which you can think is like the epitome of what is corporate. I am still going to be like playing soca music in my presentation. I'm still going to be like, speaking about jab, like dirty mass and all these kind of things. I'm not going to give you like a curated version of what it is that I'm putting forward to you. You're going to learn the fundamentals. I think when you're doing workshops, obviously you have to know how to respond to your audience, but I don't essentially dumb it down, because I feel like we shortchange ourselves so much from dumbing ourselves down to kind of create this kind of like commercial, palatable version of ourselves. And I feel we have shortchanged ourselves. So I don't do that. So in terms of my creative process, I just want to make it as fun, accessible, engaging, colorful, heartfelt. That's kind of like how my process goes.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really interesting.
Thank you.
And also inspiring for people who maybe want to do a similar thing with their artwork. All right. So you said that you've just been at a shoot for Notting Hill.
Yeah.
And obviously Notting Hill.
My eyelashes are so long.
It's coming up this weekend, Notting Hill Carnival. So just want to tell us a bit more about what you do as an ambassador for the carnival.
Okay, yeah. So doing it, being an ambassador to do things like this, but also like in terms of delivering workshops, I've done a few lives on the Notting Hill Carnival platform where we did like a history of, we're doing like a cooking session, so like learning about Caribbean cuisine and history at the same time. So if you're cooking saltfish, like the history of saltfish, but just within that, an ambassador, I think for me, for my role specifically, I try to encourage people to participate, not just spectate, and to kind of understand the meaning of what Carnival is. Once you understand the meaning of what Carnival is, it just adds to your experience. It doesn't take away. And I feel like it's not just a 2-day party. That calling it a 2-day street party is a huge injustice. And so that's what I do as an ambassador, as a historian, because we have loads of different ambassadors. Some are musicians, some are masquerade makers, and so on. But me as a historian, I've taken upon the role of kind of encouraging people to understand the meaning and context of Carnival in a fun way.
Sure. And looking at that meaning of Carnival and how it may be often overlooked by somebody who just wants to spectate, as you say, rather than participate. Tell us more about the dirty mass tradition of Carnival and what that means to you.
Okay, yeah, dirty mass is amazing. I think it's one of my favorite parts of Carnival. It's all great to get all dolled up and everything, but Dirty Mass is a transition from one life into the next. So the history behind it is that during slavery, a lot of the times the enslaved had to go down to the fields to put out like cane fires, so field fires. The cane fields were on fire. Sometimes in the middle of the night, they'd have to wake up to go and put out the fires. And it was something that was one of the most arduous things that they hated so much, to be disturbed from their peace to go and put out to save the very thing that enslaved you, okay? So when the announcement of emancipation happened, the enslaved went down to the cane fields and then they covered themselves in molasses. They lit torches, and then they decided to sing and dance and go into a procession. Because within Carnival, within the period of enslavement, there were different slave codes. So slave codes were the different laws that would stipulate what you could and could not do within the colonies. So they had things like, you can't sing, you can't dance, you can't play instruments, you couldn't blow the conch shell, you couldn't beat the drum. So you couldn't gather in groups of more than 6. Of course, it varied from colony to colony, but for sure the drum was banned. So because of this, when the enslaved got their emancipation, the first thing they do was sing and drum and dance and do all these things and then move out of the plantation. So this is why the movement of Carnival in terms of the procession is important, because you're speaking about the freedom of movement that you did not have before. So Dirty Mass is, so they covered themselves with the molasses. So they covered themselves in the very thing that enslaved them for so long. And then they moved. And then over time, it progressed from molasses into paint, powder, chocolate. People got creative. I think the colored powder comes from, our East Indian heritage in the Caribbean as well, from the indentured laborers who came across from India after, the end of African enslavement. So we had a huge influx of indentured laborers from India, and they brought their own influences. This is why you can find curry in the Caribbean. They brought ganja to the Caribbean. They brought so much, and so this is where you'd see the colored powder and so on. But so that's what Dirty Mass is. And then so that's you do Dirty Mass before you do Pretty Mass. It's never the other way. That is what it is. But a variant of Dirty Mass is Jab Jab. So Jab Jab is something that you find specifically in Grenada, where they cover themselves in black oil. So the black oil, so the jab is in homage to an enslaved who fell into a vat of molasses. Trinidad has its own version called Jab Molassie. But within that, the spirit of this enslaved person who died falling in the, it is my favorite part, the Timas is my favorite part too. The spirit of this enslaved comes back to haunt you, right? Or it's haunting the enslavers, or this is haunting the community and so on. So when you look at Jab Jab, you see you cover yourself in the black oil, okay? So the black oil is to make you more black. So it's to emphasize your Africanness. It's to make you, it's a homage to your African ancestry. When you see Jab also, you see them with like chains and locks. That is in reference to slavery as well. Then also you see sometimes they will have like a dead fish hanging out their mouth, or a dead octopus, or you see them pushing like a pig's head in a pram. They're doing things to intentionally shock the crowd. That is something it's with intention, because it's to show that we were oppressed for so long, and you said that we were vulgar and we were heathenish, but I'm going to show you vulgar and heathenish now. So it is on purpose. So so there's a lot of intricacies within Dirty Mass. But aside from that historical part, because I only learned this history part within the past few years, but I grew up participating and loving Dirty Mass. And it's because it is just the freedom of getting completely dirty. Like you come in an old t-shirt, an old pair of shorts, old shoe, and everyone is the same. And you have an old plastic bag on your head or whatever to cover your hair. And you just revel in getting dirty, and the music, you're not thinking about what you look like, you're not really taking selfies, you're not self-conscious. And a lot of people have said they have found themselves through dirty masks, because living day-to-day life where you are constantly curating yourself, you're constantly looking at yourself, you're constantly wondering what people think about you. In dirty masks, you don't care. You honestly don't. So that's why I find in many ways dirty masks more liberating than pretty masks, because everyone is dirty, everyone is filthy, everyone is like faceless, because we all look the same. And it's not about money or class or anything like that. So dirty masks is a very, very important part of Carnival. And then after dirty mass, you go home. So this dirty mass normally happens in the Caribbean, normally happens early in the morning. So Juve is what it's called also. So Juve, which means daybreak. And then you go home, you shower, and you put on your pretty costume. So you transition it from one life into the next. So that's yeah, I absolutely love dirty mass.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely learned a lot. And I think it's super empowering, as you say, like the freedom aspect of that, and how people can really find themselves and find other people as well in that freeing environment. So thank you for sharing, Fiona. I really appreciate it. My other question today is just about how you yourself have got into the creative industry. Like, you've just come back from a shoot, you're an educator, you have this Instagram platform. I'm wondering how that all started for you.
Boy, I think I knew from when I was a teenager growing up in St. Lucia, I wanted to be an artist. I thought at the time I wanted to be a painter, and I had this beautiful loft and just paint all these pretty pictures. And then I moved to the UK, and I saw all of these artists hustling on the street. And I felt like there's no way, I'm not as good as them, and they're on the street hustling. I'm screwed. So I'm like, what can I do? So I went into photography, because I felt like it would be like a safe way to still be creative, but I'm still like employable, where I can get a steady income and stuff. So I studied that, and I practiced as a photographer full time for several years, and it was great. But I still, one of the things that frustrated me when I was in uni here is I felt like our stories were not being told properly. I felt that the narrative of Caribbean history and culture and our identity has a very reductive approach to it. So I just wanted to start telling our stories in our own way. I was just having a discussion with my friend, because I'm at her house right now, that it's kind of looking through things like when you go to a lot of these creative institutions, your tutors are normally white men, so you are being taught how to be creative through the white lens. And I felt that I needed the white male lens and gaze, and you respond to you respond in this way, and it's about kind of coming out of that. And it is you operate regardless of that. So I've always been focused on telling our story. So no matter what I do, I'm always the underlying focus is always kind of correct representation, and making our community have something, a catalog of amazingness that we can connect to, and that's specifically ours, but it can also be enjoyed by everyone, but something that's for us, because we don't have that. It's like you especially living in the UK, you have to go through like a specific effort to find yourself. You have to go for a specific effort to find your cuisine. You have to go for a specific effort. You have to go to this all across town to find travel an hour and two to find this one thing that you need. And it can be very demotivated. So it's within the creative industry. Like I photography, I went into film because that's just an extension of our storytelling. I do hand painted clothing and stuff like that, because I just love like colors and brightness and everything. So, and that in itself is storytelling too, because it's like UK is so gray and stuff, and I need something to remind me of me. So yeah, so I think within that, so everything I do is storytelling in different ways. And I guess if I like something, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
You know, so I will just that's pretty much how my journey has been. So with Know Your Caribbean, that's just another extension of my photography, my film work, my everything is storytelling.
Wow, thank you for sharing. I think it's super inspiring how like you found the like multiple different platforms to storytell, whether that is through imagery or photography or video making or fashion, or obviously like this Instagram platform. So yeah, I think that is really inspiring. So thank you. And I just have one more question for you today, and it's where people can go to find out more about your work for Know Your Caribbean and also in Notting Hill Carnival.
Okay, big up Just Vibes in the house. We have an event tomorrow actually, so that's one of the places you can find us. So we'll be doing a kind of trivia giveaway with Just Vibes. We're doing a social distancing carnival event because we still wanted to do something for the season and still obviously maintain that we are safe and so on. So that's tomorrow. If you head to Just Vibes Instagram, you'll find out all the details, but I will definitely be there. And Know Your Caribbean will be doing some kind of a presentation tomorrow. But outside of that, also, you know, the Instagram, Know Your Caribbean. I also have the website, knowyourcaribbean.com. I'm on Twitter as well. And but I'm also like contactable in terms of if you want to do workshops, if it be it online or in person, now that things are starting to open up. And yeah, so that's where you can find me. So.
Thank you, Fiona. Thanks so much for joining today. It's
My pleasure.
amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today's episode was made possible by Voice Magazine, an online platform for young people interested in art and culture. You can read Voice over at voicemag.uk and find it on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook as VoiceMagUK. The Voice contributors are also on Instagram over at voice.extra. If you are looking for another podcast to listen to, the contributors release the Voice Extra podcast every Saturday, where they talk about the pieces they've produced and the culture they've been enjoying. If you like this podcast, please consider helping us to make more with a donation of any amount at voicemag.uk/donate. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod for the use of the track Thief in the Night. You can find more of his work in incompetech.com. Tom Inniss was the executive producer.